Florida and Tennessee get set to do battle Saturday night in Gainesville. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Gators and the Vols. Hello, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Guys, we are inching ever so close to that 30,000 subscriber mark. We can't do it without your love and support. Also, make sure you check out our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. It's Florida and Tennessee, although later in the year than normal. This one, an old SEC rivalry that never lacks in drama, taking place on Saturday night down in the Swamp. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. It's the Gators. It's the Vols. I am Chris Phillips, and joining me, as he always does, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, and one of the very best in the business, Mr. Cole the Bear Thompson. Bear, what's going on, my friend? Appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to talk about this game. We've got one team in search of a head coach, and the rumors are nonstop, and we talk about distractions. Hey, maybe a distraction for Florida, but on the other side, while their playoff hopes are dead, we've got a team trying to do something they haven't done in over 20 years. That's go into a venue and get a win. So no lacking of dramatics or storylines on Saturday night.
And if you want to add more validity to the story, it will be the first time that Tennessee wins back-to-back games against Florida since that 2004-2003 season. So another thing that you got to add on in, Tennessee, can you keep your pathway alive to get into a better bowl game? You still have an opportunity to get to 10 wins this year because of the bowl victory that could occur. So what can you do to guarantee that this team is built different than in years past? And for Florida's standpoint, can you maybe just continue to beat up on little brother that comes into your backyard all the time and never is able to win? Like, is that a way to where Billy Gonzalez and company consider this at least victory finish to fight to the end goal? Because maybe you beat up on Florida State, but to end the year with back-to-back wins against rivals, it's just a good way to kind of go ahead and put a bow on what was this very mundane 2025 campaign.
Yeah, Florida and Tennessee fans, they're both tuned in. They know without me saying this, but you talk to either side, these two teams could be defeated, and this is a big game. They hate each other. They loathe each other. Florida, Tennessee, it really just speaks for itself. Again, taking place this weekend, 6:30 Central Time kickoff, 7:30 Eastern down there in Florida, airing on ABC in Gainesville, Florida, of course, at the Swamp, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Bear, Tennessee is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under sits at 57.5. Of course, Florida leads the all-time series 32-22. And last year's meeting, Bear, really dramatic, right? Remember, Florida went up to Knoxville. This game went to overtime. Tennessee won that game by a final score of 23-17. But as we mentioned, the big kicker here, Tennessee has not won in Gainesville since 2003. And I mean, I even recall being like, this isn't just a thing where like, oh, Florida's just been the better team. Especially over the last decade, I think there's been a lot of times where at least it was a coin flip, or maybe even Tennessee was the better team. Think about 2 years ago when Joe Milton and company went into Gainesville. I don't know a single person that was picking Florida to win that game. And they didn't just win, they throttled them. So it goes so far beyond. This is kind of like a Bama at Jordan Hare situation where it's like, you know, they believe there's voodoo in the field and there's just something more to it. So we'll see for Tennessee, can they overcome that mental hurdle? And as we dive in the game, Bear, I think that's really where I start with this game. Yeah. It's just the mental hurdle for the Vols. And you'd like to think as a Tennessee fan, like, okay, what's happened in the past doesn't affect this team. But how long have you been saying that? And it just seems to every single year, it's death taxes. You can't win down there in Gainesville. I mean, streaks are made to be broken. Like at some point, it's going to happen. But at minimum, when you look at this game, even as bad and down and out as Florida is, it still gives you pause. It still gives you hesitation because on the other side, the mental edge that Florida has of, yeah, I mean, we're supposed to beat Tennessee. Like we don't lose to them, especially at home. It's a very fascinating chess match when it comes to the mental side of this game.
Well, they won 10 straight games before they lost to Tennessee at one point. So, like, they expect this to be a good battle. And then you got to ask yourself, Does roster reconstruction and do roster rankings have any role into this matchup? Because Florida still, whether or not you want to say they've been playing up to a standard, what is the 247 composite rankings? They're still a top 15 team in the country. So when you have that much talent and you have the backyard in your vicinity, and you've been able to win with lesser teams of the past, it gives you an opportunity. But that's kind of where you got to ask yourself, what needs to change for Tennessee to finally get back on the wagon? Because there have been some very good teams at Tennessee that have come on in to the Swamp and they lose. It just is what is known at this point. You find a way to lose whenever you play down in the state of Florida. That's kind of the case. So what is it about that daunting task? Is there something that you do in pregame that's not working? Is there a prayer that you're saying that you need to throw out of the woodwork? Like, what is it that you guys have done the last 2 decades to where you can't win a football game down in Gainesville? And then specifically in this matchup, what are some things that you're going to do in the first half that are going to make sure this isn't a game in the second? Because the thing was, when you look at that Ole Miss matchup against Florida, Florida did a good job of holding its own going into the fourth quarter, and then they puked all over themselves, and it led to a 10-point swing. They ended up losing the football game. Can Tennessee put themselves in a spot to where they're building such a lead and momentum, there is no opportunity to allow them to come on back in? Because what happened last year? You brought in DJ Lagway. Lagway started to let his presence be known, and you let Florida get back into this football game. Can you make sure that you don't let Florida get back in this football game?
I think for Tennessee too, Bear, for this 2025 season, it's important to score a signature win, if you will. And I mean, they're going to have an opportunity over these next 2 weeks. And I know Florida's not great, but like even sitting at 7-3, like you look at their schedule and who they've beaten. I mean, what's their best win? Is it Kentucky at this point? At Kentucky because of the surge they've made? I mean, besides that, they've beaten in conference play Mississippi State, Arkansas, and I believe that's it. Yeah, they're 3-3 in SEC play. So, like, I think it's important for the landscape or for the perspective of the 2025 season. You got a pair of big games closing out at Florida and, of course, Vandy at home. You know, putting a positive stamp on what was the 25 season, despite the fact you're not going to the college football playoff. It's going to start for Tennessee, obviously, offensively, Bear. Joey Aguilar, quarterback, going into a hostile environment because it will be a hostile environment. It's another sellout for Florida. He's got to be good for them yet again. I mean, you go back to the Oklahoma game. He threw for 393 yards. Obviously, they struggled to run the football a little bit, which is uncharacteristic of them, just 63 yards rushing, 1.8 yards per carry. But, yeah, I mean, I hate to oversimplify it, Bear, but the performance of both these quarterbacks, but for Tennessee offensively, man, Joey Aguilar's got to be on. I think there's going to be opportunities to win in the secondary. And then in the running game as well, we just saw what Ole Miss did with Kawan Lacey, and we know that with Josh Heupel, they want to establish the run early, often, kind of similar to what Ole Miss does offensively. So finding that offensive balance, but you got your stars have got to shine in a game like this. I think they're going to need a big performance from Joey Aguilar to go in there and do something they haven't done in quite some time.
I think you want to trust your ground game. That would be my big standpoint, because we don't know what's going to be the stats of a lot of these players for the defensive line for Florida. But Florida this year, they've been decent when it comes to defending the run. They've seen a little bit of drop off over the last few weeks, but I mean, the Kewan Lacey standpoint, you give up over 265 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, like, if that's not a standpoint of, hey, Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis, Star Thomas, go out there, make plays. Go out there and deliver time after time after time, continuously move the sticks, put us in a better position. What I will counteract and say, I'm very interested to see what Joey Aguilar can do in this performance to kind of make up for what he didn't do last week. Because you look at the stat line, it actually is interesting to see how bad Tennessee was able to beat up on New Mexico State. And it does show the roster composite differential. But Tennessee was the worst team when it came to passing yards. Tennessee was the worst team when it came to completion percentage. Tennessee was the worst team when it came to yards per pass attempt. And Joey Aguilar had just as many turnovers as New Mexico State. And I think that you still have to remind yourself, Florida is a good enough defense to go ahead and put their offense in a position to where if they get a little bit hot, like, I'm not saying they got to go scorching earth fire, but like just a little bit hot, they'll do enough to where they can get into field goal range. They can make some kicks, and better yet, they can punch it on in with Jaden Baugh in the end zone to where they're up 10-0, and 10-0 may end up being enough if you continuously throw bad turnover after turnover. So I think you got to run the football in this game. I think you got to establish yourself as a physical team on the ground. But if you're Joey Aguilar, you cannot afford to have a bad mistake at the wrong time, especially when it comes to trying to connect downfield with Mike Matthews or Chris Brazzell or what you got with Braden Staley. You got to make sure that your throws are on point and that you're able to go ahead and kind of just walk on into the end zone.
Feels like momentum, Bear, will be a big part of this game. Again, anytime you got a game like this, I think certainly it plays a major factor. Bear, do you know when the last time Tennessee gave up less than 100 rushing yards against an SEC opponent?
The last time they gave up less than
100 rushing yards. Here's the spoiler. It hasn't happened.
I'd say this hasn't happened this year.
It was 2024. So
yeah.
Florida, run the damn ball. I mean, Tennessee's defense has been susceptible to the rushing attack. It starts with Jaden Ball, man. I mean, you've got to feed him, run the football. Again, it has not happened this year for Tennessee. They've gotten a little bit better. They weren't quite as bad as they were early in the season, but I mean, they've had some pretty gaudy rushing numbers put up against them, and some teams that even struggle to run the football have found it against them. Dude, it's got to start with Jaden Ball. You can't put this entire game on DJ Lagway with his inconsistencies. And I thought he even made some, being there in person, I thought he made some plays against Ole Miss. He made some throws, but this has got to be the win that Jaden Ball built, man. This has got to be the game that Jaden Ball created. I think you got to feed him early and often.
Well, the other thing is that you don't know what you have at wide receiver right now because of so many guys being injured. No more Trey Wilson, no more Dallas Wilson. I mean, yeah, you got some good really passes off last weekend if you were Florida with DJ Lagway, but still, you can't just rely on one great pass. I mean, look at the numbers on what we saw last week. TJ Abrams was your leading receiver. J. Michael Sturdivant only had 2 catches, and one was for a 57-yard strike. So you're going to rely a lot on the explosives downfield, the 20, 30, 40, 50-yard down plays. And here's the crazy part, Chris. It can happen because the Tennessee, as susceptible as they are against the run, they're really susceptible downfield and open field when it comes to pass coverage. So there's an opportunity to win with the explosives, but you're right. I don't want to put this game on number 2 shoulders. He's been too inconsistent. He has more interceptions than he has touchdowns this year. He continuously throws into double coverage. So what's the way to guarantee that you get Tennessee's defense frustrated? You run the damn ball with 13 as he's trying to get to 1,000 yards on the season. He's trying to get to double-digit touchdowns, and you then eventually get everybody lined up in the box, and then you take your shots downfield, and then you try to find a Vernell Brown, and then you try to find a J. Michael Sturdivant, and then you try to find a TJ Abrams or an Aiden Mizell or a Nishan Montgomery. Then you go after those type of guys because this feels like right now, if you're saying that the only way we can win is through the air, even with a team like Tennessee that is known for giving up the explosive plays, you basically kind of shoot yourself in the foot and make yourself a one-dimensional offense.
Bear, I have to mention this, and I know Tennessee fans will probably be pissy at me for it, but this is a big game for Josh Heupel, man. This is a really big game for him. Not from the standpoint of like if they lose, like changes should be made. Well, you and I have very much publicly been on record about Josh Heupel and the job he's done, and yeah, he's done an incredible job. He shouldn't be going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think he gets enough credit for the job he's done there, but it's still a big one, man. I mean, we talk about every year Josh Heupel has that signature road loss.
Yeah.
That haunts him, right? Has that signature road loss. And it hasn't happened this season. It hasn't happened.
I'd push back. I think that the Alabama game is because if you don't throw that interception, do you end up going into that game down by a touchdown versus down by 19?
Well, the thing I would say, though, is like those signature road losses to me have come in games they should have won.
Okay.
You weren't supposed to beat Bama. I mean, you'd like to, but you were the dog in that game, right? You were the underdog.
Yeah.
Like losing at Arkansas last year, losing at Florida in 23, at Mizzou in 22, I don't think it quite equates to that Bama game. Like that, again, that Bama game would have been an upset. It would have. And you're right, though. You had an opportunity, you dropped the ball, but like, I think it's a forgivable sin. Hey, you lost at Bama, and then the way Bama was playing, obviously, and the team they are, it is what it is. You lose at Florida, man, a Florida team that doesn't have a head coach, that's going to be I don't care what the records say, that's going to be a really tough pill to swallow, and it's just going to, fairly or unfairly, it's going to continue this narrative that Josh Heupel every single season is good for one of these games that's just like, just a mind-blowing, befuddling, disappointing loss on the road. And I think it's only going to continue to drive the narrative too. Like Tennessee fans wondering, can he get them to the next level, start winning the big ones? Because it's going to be hard to get there if you can't win some of these ones that you're supposed to win. So, we saw the way Tennessee fans reacted after the Oklahoma game.
Right.
You lose this one, it's going to be a long week going into the rivalry game against Vandy.
I mean, it's the turnovers, though. That's what it comes down to. Tennessee outgained Oklahoma by over 200 yards in the first half, but they led in turnovers, and it led to points being scored. Just like Oklahoma trailed by over 175 yards to Alabama, but they led in turnovers, and they capitalized and got 17 points on the board. So you can't afford, if you're Josh Heupel and company, to let this offense be sporadic and unfortunately lead to that moment where you're driving downfield and you're up big and you're watching as the explosives are connecting, but you fumble the football at the 2-yard line and then they go run it down the field and they scoop and score it. You can't afford to have a double coverage interception where somebody on Florida's sideline is rushing down the field and it's pick six, or they put themselves inside the 20 after being at your 20. Like, those are some things you can't have happen. I do agree with you. It's a big game for Josh Heupel, largely, in my opinion, because of the narrative of the James Franklin thing. Now, I'll be completely real. I don't think James Franklin is a bad coach. I think James Franklin has a ceiling as a coach. But I also think that when you look at a guy like Josh Heupel coming on in from UCF, not a prominent big-time guy, is settling for playing at the AAC level when we hired him, then people will start to kind of conjugate together and say, okay, well, now the argument for James Franklin's true. Because James Franklin can never beat his rival. James Franklin never could beat up on Ohio State, could never beat up on Michigan efficiently. Well, you can't beat Florida. Just the bottom line. You can't beat Florida in the swamp, and you lose a big-time game. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's fair to him. I think that what he's been able to accomplish is massive for Tennessee football, especially knowing what's the long-term play here. But the only way to silence the flames and guarantee that this is not going to be an upset and something that people will have to talk about going into the matchup against Vandy, end it. End the streak. Be able to finally say this is the year where we put it all together and we finally stop with the self-inflicted wounds.
Bear, it's going to be a fun one. Gators and Vols, there's always dramatics when these two teams square off. That being said, let's lock in some picks. Let's lock in some predictions. Would you like the honors or you want me to start first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think that, again, Florida, you have nothing to lose. You want to continue to end your season on a high note, win back-to-back games against rivals, and shut everybody up. And then go ahead and hire Lane Kiffin and then call that a problem. That's what you want. I think that would be the winning formula to close out November. And nobody would have a better November for the long term than that. For Tennessee, again, there's an opportunity for you to end your year 9-3, which means that you get to a better bowl game. You get to 10-3, 10 wins. Once again, Josh Heupel, that's 3 times in the last 4 years. That's something to hold your hat on. And again, yeah, you didn't make the college football playoff, but same time, you look at Joey Aguilar coming in late. You really weren't supposed to. And you still got to 9-3 with the 10-win season on the horizon potentially. So what are we going to see from both of these offenses early on in the game that will decide the factor? Are we going to see DJ Lagway try to force feed balls downfield to where you get an interception and it's a short field position for Tennessee to return? Are you going to see the rushing attack be very well established by Tennessee on early downs? That way they can take those deep shots and be able to win the one-on-ones with Brazel, with Staley, with Matthews, even with Miles Kitzman and Ethan Davis. Are you going to see both of these teams have ill-advised turnovers at the wrong stage of the field that create opportunities for special teams to play a big-time role? I think Florida right now, for as much focus is on this game, because if it's a rivalry game, there's also so much focus on outside noise that is out of the player's control. I mean, do we know who's going to be our head coach next year? We're hearing Lane's going to come on in. Do I need to go enter the transfer portal? Am I starting to look at, what am I doing wrong to where I could be brought back here? I think that there's so many distractions when it comes to what Florida is dealing with. And Tennessee, they're kind of pissed because, there's been twice they had the game in the hands for them to be able to say, we mean business. We're legit throughout to go to the playoff. And you blew it both chances. You blew it against Oklahoma. You blew it against Georgia. And both were in your backyard. So now you got to ask yourself, can I put together drives that is going to allow me to vent my frustration on not being a playoff team? And we already saw one streak come to an end with Vanderbilt going into Willie B and beating up on South Carolina. I think that we see another one end finally. The streak is over. Thank God. We can finally say Josh Heupel won a game that he was supposed to win. I personally don't think it's going to be close. I think that this is going to be Tennessee's Super Bowl because they want to end the narrative that they can't win in the swamp. And they're going to end the narrative that they can't win in the swamp. And Joey Aguilar is going to have himself a day. And I think Chris Brazzell is going to put himself very much in the conversation for the Biletnikoff Award. And I think that they're going to run rampant left and right all over Florida. I got a final score of 38-20. I think that you will see a double-digit win and Josh Heupel getting his team motivated to play against Vanderbilt and end their college football playoff dreams in like a matter of days.
Not so fast, my friend.
I knew it.
Not so fast.
I knew it.
I'll just say this. I have been in this scenario picking this game 2 years ago even, where I thought it was a no-brainer. Tennessee was so much better than Florida. So much better. At least I thought so. And inexplicably, Florida jumps out, you might recall, with Graham Mertz to that big lead and never looked back. And Joe Milton struggled, and they didn't just win. They won that game convincingly.
Yeah.
A lot of distractions, you're right, around Florida for sure. Everybody talks about, oh, well, does it distract Ole Miss? And like it distracts the teams that are trying to get him too, I think. It's the conversations around Lane and who the next head coach is going to be, like you were saying. Like I said, this is a huge game for Josh Heupel. It's a huge game for Tennessee. It's at some point, streaks are made to be broken. They've got to get the monkey off the back. Like it's got to happen. I think to even take a step forward, probably as a program. Like you just need to end this. This needs to end. If you are going, especially to, again, they don't have a coach for SEC hierarchy standpoint. You can't be even or even falling behind a team in a program that doesn't have a sitting head coach. It's embarrassing if you lose this game. It is, to a degree, because of that fact. I just have to see it, dude. I mean, I've seen Florida, a lesser Florida team, and this Florida team has talent. Seeing them in Oxford last week, they still have talent. Banged up, beat up, every reason to quit. Jaden Ball legacy game incoming. I think he goes off. I think he runs all over this Tennessee defense. And I don't know exactly how it happens or why it happens, but the fact of the matter is it has happened every year, every time they play in the swamp since 2003. I think the voodoo of the swamp at night doesn't make sense, but I think Florida puts together one of their better games, if not their best game of the season, finds a way. It's the what do you call it? The voodoo shaman man. It's the Gators playing mind tricks with Tennessee again. Josh Heupel, he's good for one of these every season till proven otherwise. This is where they have struggled. They have struggled mightily on the road in his tenure. That's the one knock on him that is a very valid knock. And when you're going to Gainesville, you're going into the swamp. Give me Florida to just find a way. I'm going to go Gators 27, Tennessee 24. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense, Bear. I know. But a lot of these results over the years haven't made a ton of sense. I'll even take it this far. I think one of two things is going to happen Saturday night. Florida's going to pull off this win, or you're right, Tennessee's going to blow it open. I don't like, if this is a close game in any capacity going to the fourth quarter, it favors Florida, because they do have the mental edge. And as a Tennessee fan, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. We are in it again. So I think one of those two will happen. I'm going to say Florida finds a way. I think they've got one more punch left in them. You ever heard, like, before people die, when they're on their deathbed, they have one more surge of energy.
Yep.
And then they pass. I think this might be Florida's one last surge before this 2025 team at least fades off into the distance, fades off into oblivion. Florida finding a way, 27-24. We'll see. Does the magic of the swamp live on for the Gators, or is not having a head coach enough for Tennessee to finally snap it? It is going to be This is going to be a wacky game, I think, either way. I do think this is going to be a strange game. But
it's going to be strange because it will be the first slaughtering that we see from Tennessee in a while. Down the swamp.
The one guarantee, hostility from both sides. Gators, Vols, there is no love lost. I'm going Florida. Bears going Tennessee. Guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think comes out on top Saturday night in the swamp when Florida and Tennessee do battle? Guys, it's going to do all for us. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, do you want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel? Because as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's NBA tip-off week. FanDuel is your home for live betting, even if you miss the start of a game or you want to ride the hot hand. FanDuel's got live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now's the perfect time to join. FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to sign up today. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out where we get your podcasts all across your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We're signing off. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you all on the other side.